Welcome, everyone. It is the Our Turf Football Podcast. I am Dana OG.
Let's talk victories.
What?
Let's talk victories.
Oh, I'm sorry. Lisa would really like to be able to say that she won. So, Lisa, congratulations.
Victory! She's been waiting a long time to do that.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. Sonia, I believe you too can raise your hand for not being a loser this week for the first time.
We didn't lose.
That's all that matters.
Notice I'm wearing camouflage. Salute to service this week.
Yay! But I do love that the Lions didn't lose. They didn't win.
They didn't win by any shot, but they didn't lose.
If it was a soccer game, they would have gotten 1 point.
I was about to say it would have been 1 point.
Right. We have draws all the time in soccer, so I'm down with that.
I was about to say, I'm paying attention, soccer people. I'm paying attention.
It's a girl after my own heart right there. Love it. It was a weird, wild week in football. Wait, go ahead.
You know what I love? I love getting cheesesteaks from donkeys.
I do too, but I wasn't there yet. Okay, so cheesesteaks from donkeys.
Especially on victories. They taste so much better on victories.
They do. Lisa, tell everyone about our sponsor.
Well, after my team wins or lose, I go and get a Donkey's cheesesteak from Camden. 3 locations: Camden, New Jersey, Medford, New Jersey, and their brand new one at Mount Holly, New Jersey. No better way to celebrate a victory or a loss than a good Donkey's cheesesteak.
Well, it's a celebration if you win, and then it's consolation if you lose, right? So either way, it's win-win completely, right? Completely.
Right. And especially now, since it's all cold now, and go get yourself a nice warm cheesesteak.
Yep, it's delicious. We want to thank Donkeys for sponsoring our podcast for the entire season. We love those guys, and we love the support that they have given us all year. So everyone check out, please, Donkey's Place cheesesteaks. I'm going to link them in down below, and as we always do, and then of course on our social media you'll be able to find them also. Okay, so back to it being a real weird week. All right, so let me tell you this. The Dolphins beat the Ravens, and San Francisco beat the Rams.
What's going on with the Rams?
Okay, so we're going to talk about the Rams later in the show. But here's the thing. This is 2 weeks in a row where we've gotten these really weird scores and these really weird outcomes. And it's been very fun. You know why? Because the betting world has lost its mind. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I've been inundated with betting advertisements. And now that we're doing sports betting and all of this other stuff, it's so fun. But at the same time, you get some real pissed off people. There's this whole dynamic. Betting is fun. Have any of you guys bet on a game yet? Not just while you're in Vegas hanging out or whatever, but so far this season on football?
No, but I'd like to take a bet that John won't last the whole podcast if he keeps putting little smart ass little comments like that to you. Let's take a bet on that.
Oh, John.
John, you're pushing it. You're going to make us bet.
He can say all he wants. John can say, John is our friend, and he's trying to tell me that the Seahawks got shut out. It's but the Vikings are the Vikings, so we just gotta leave it at that.
Oh, John.
So anyway, but I haven't bet yet this year. I've been real tempted to download because our friends in England, they bet every week. Oh, $1 here, $1 there. It's really ingrained in their sports culture, and it's getting there for us. But I just know that a lot of people have been really upset about the betting. People are really, really upset. All right, so let's go ahead, though. There's 3 main topics that we want to talk about tonight with everyone. We want to talk about overtime rules, tie rules, about how sometimes even the players don't understand what's going on. It was fascinating. And then we're going to play armchair GM for a little while. We're talking about 2 big topics that have been all over my Twitter. I'm sure they're all over everyone's Twitter. We're going to talk about quarterbacks and head coaches, and if you're rebuilding a team, since many of us are in that process, is it hard to get a head coach or a quarterback? And then I want to talk about the other side of that is draft picks versus 1-year rental impact players. And yes, we're going to focus on the Rams, but they're not the only team to do it. And so I want I want to talk about that. So let's start first with the overtime rules. Let's go ahead and Kate, I'm going to hand this over to you because I knew that this was, near and dear to you this week.
I've always struggled with the overtime rules, both when it comes to what college football does and when it does what the NFL does. And I think I was going to say it was Donovan McNabb. Was it Donovan McNabb who played that game and at the end of the overtime, he was like, what do you mean there's not another one? What do you mean? Like he had no clue what the overtime rules were, that there was one overtime period and that's it. For me, I think it's hilarious that a couple of y'all mentioned soccer because my thought is we do one overtime period. And if it's still a tie, we get the kickers out. And we start at the 20-yard line, and we do a kickoff or a shootout. We each kick from the 20, and if we both make it, we go to the 25, then the 30.
Yes.
And we back up 5 yards at a time till someone misses. And then that team wins because we're running out of usefulness for kickers in a lot of areas. The conversation's starting again of why do we even do field goals? Why don't we just go for 2 points after every touchdown and get rid of kickers altogether? And so maybe if we save them for ties, I'm fine with getting rid of extra points. Make everyone go for 2 and just keep them around for field goals. But I've seen at least so many teams who clearly struggle with trust issues with their kickers. Or when the week that the Browns played the Pittsburgh Steelers, Boswell actually got hurt and they didn't have a kicker for the rest of the game, which changed things up for them because they just had the one. But the rules for ties I struggle with anyway. And for me this season, it's even worse because now you've got 17 games instead of 16. Now it's 17 and a half. So I guess Detroit's going to go 0-16-1. Like if you hit 5, I guess maybe you can get to 500 now. What, 7.5 is 8.5? 8.5. So if you can win 8 games, you can hit 500. Nobody else can hit 500 because you need that half a game out of 17. It just, from a math standpoint, it bothers my OCD and it bothers all my math standpoints. And I just feel like we watched a college game a few weeks ago. I think it was Penn State played somebody 7 overtimes.
I think it was more than
Penn State, Illinois.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Wasn't it? 9 plus.
If they can go 7, 8, 9 overtimes, why can't the pros go overtime? Just keep playing.
And that was just 2-point conversion after 2-point conversion.
Yeah, and that's after that first round. They're right. That's all they're trying to do is just hit the 2-point conversions.
Right. Well, you went after the kicker part, right? Because honestly, I would have an issue like if we went into 2 or 3, 4 overtimes and I got one of my stars hurt. See that would be my issue with it with injuries. So I think you would almost have to do it something like a kickoff because what's a kicker going to hurt kicking field goals? But they could pull something. I don't know. See, I tip the scale because it's kind of weird because in college football you need it because those are rankings and brackets and they could decide where you fall in the national championship games and the playoffs. With football, however, I just risking injury to me would be my main focus on that. I mean, you're going an extra whole quarter getting beat up. And then you're going to condense the field to start, if you
I need a center, I need a snapper, and I need a kicker, and that's it. Nobody on either line. Nobody else.
See, I don't know, Kate. I don't know.
You throw the ball to the snapper, and he kicks, and then the other team comes over, and you can pick the left hash or the right. I don't care which one. And you kick at 20 yards, and then we'll back you up 5 yards at a time. And then nobody's getting hurt. It's a simple and easy thing to do. And I don't know who would argue against who would just rather have a tie than do so. I don't know.
It's
also cleaner. And it's just a kick. There is no he was down at there's no penalties. It's just a kick. And you just go and it just makes it that much easier. I like that idea, Kate. I love it.
Here's the thing. I think at least the way I look at it, ties don't really bother me all that much because they're so rare. Like we're not talking about at least one game a week ends up in a tie. You know what I mean? And so it really, I don't know that we need to completely overhaul the system. I think injury is the number one issue for not just having continuous overtimes. Right. But to be honest with you, I don't know that they need to really to really switch it up. See, now this bugs the crap out of me. John's like, that isn't football. Yeah, it is football. A kicker is definitely a huge part of a team. And maybe then that would be more like put more effort and energy into who their kickers are, because God knows some of them are bad kickers this year. But I don't know that they need to really overhaul that. If that became something that was happening again more than once a season, maybe even twice a season, then maybe they need to look at it a little bit more. But I don't know that ties are a big enough problem.
But now, that's why it's easier to do. I just checked the standings.
Oh, that's 2020.
Fair. In 2020, there was one game that ended a tie the whole season.
Okay, I have a question.
2019, there was one game. So if it's that rare, in 2020 it was
because it almost, I hate to say, because it almost seems like the teams that are ended up in tie are teams that pretty much aren't in contention. You know what I mean?
Yeah. In 19, it was Lions, Cardinals.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And in 2020,
yes,
Eagles, Bengals, I think.
Now, does the tie hurt
Bengals? So
Steelers worse or the Lions worse? You know what I mean? That's another thing too. Is who? Honestly, sorry, Sonia, but it really doesn't affect the Lions. It's almost like a moral victory for them.
And that's what I was going to say. It affects the Steelers more because they're going to be more in contention in their division than the Lions are right now.
They made a mess out of our division. The Bengals had a bye and did the best out of every team in our division this week. Pittsburgh had the tie, and then the Ravens and Browns both lost. So it was a whole weird thing for the division, as it was. But
so John just said go back to like the original overtime. First team that scores wins. You would, I mean, and there's your betting where Dana just said, because the odds Vegas love that, because whoever usually wins the coin toss usually either can get a field goal.
Mm-hmm. You're
so
usually,
right? Nobody scored.
Lions fans will remember Marty Mornhinweg. Go ahead.
It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered. Yeah, here's the thing. Again, until it becomes more of a prevalent issue, I don't think that the NFL will probably do anything about it. People hate ties. They hate them. Like, they just hate them. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's not a reoccurring issue. If we get to a point that it does become a reoccurring issue, I promise you, they will jump on it and they will make some changes. So it'll be real interesting. It'll be really
football, John.
You kick it with the foot.
You need a kick.
No, John, I said it. I meant to say that I would like to go back to because you just hit it with go back to the 15-minute. To me, just first team scores wins.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Well, we ain't fixing this today. Even though we think we're armchair quarterback or GMs, we ain't fixing this one today. Here's another one. All right, now I'm just going to put this out there, and I'm going to warn John right now. He better just be quiet. So,
John. Here comes my bet. I might win.
Here's the thing. He knows I'm teasing. So there's a huge debate going on in Seahawks Twitter right now because of the situation the team is in, and the situation. There is a definite Pete Carroll camp, and there is a Russell Wilson camp. And the argument has been, do you trade Russ and get picks? Do you force Pete to retire? Is it harder to replace one than the other? And that's what it boils down to. And then I started doing a little looking. We said we were looking at, as Seahawks people, we were looking at us, but then I started looking at other teams. This debate goes on in a lot of teams. Before the 49ers managed to win last night, there was a fire Shanahan, no, he's too hard to replace, get a new quarterback thing going on. There's been that conversation in Jacksonville. Is this Trevor Lawrence's issue? Is this Urban Meyer's issue? It goes on all over. So this is what I want to bring to the table to you guys tonight to talk about. It's been a minute since Seattle has had to worry about rebuilding a team, and I honestly don't think they'll be rebuilding next year either. But the conversation out there for those teams who have rebuilt more recently, sorry, ladies, what is more important in your eyes? When you look at it, if you have a franchise quarterback, do you pull what Green Bay did and you keep Aaron Rodgers and you get rid of Mike McCarthy and try and find a new head coach that will come in and work with him? Or is it easier to keep a franchise head coach and trade your possible franchise quarterback and then start fresh with all those draft picks and everything that comes in? Which way do you guys lean? And Robin does bring up, my friend Robin is listening. I love that. Thank you, Robin. She is a Seahawks fan, for anyone who knows. It's an excellent question because there's a bad draft coming up too. And that's one thing you have to keep in mind. What type of draft class is going on? All that. There's so many factors. Lisa, I want to start with you. When you look at it, you have a franchise head coach, you have a franchise quarterback. Something's not clicking for a couple of weeks. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But who is more important, the quarterback or the coach? I think we can all guess Lisa's answer, right? Am I right, ladies? But go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I mean, your quarterback's your choice. But, I mean, if you're a smug, arrogant, untruthful quarterback, I think that you can kind of say that at that point, it's kind of that you kind of walk a dangerous path there because your quarterback's kind of acting like your head coach and your GM, kind of directing the team where he wants to go. I just think that's bad all the way around on that. But like I said, you have a team, that had to kind of make a decision. Either I go or, the head coach goes. But, I think that if you had like a quarterback like Tom Brady and he was in his 20s and him and the coach didn't click, but the stuff that he was saying, he was going to the line. He understands this. I would keep my quarterback, to be honest with you, because I think my quarterback understands how football is played. And if he disagrees and if it's not working, the formula of this GM head coach isn't working, then you probably at that time keep your quarterback and change your head coach, but keep your GM. Because at that point, somebody's making decisions that's, I'd have to see who's making the decisions of bringing guys in for my quarterback. And we always say that about building teams around quarterbacks. John Harbaugh always comes to mind with that, with Lamar Jackson, because so many people had that fail on that mark because, even teams wanted Lamar at running back and stuff like that. John embraced Lamar, built that team around his quarterback, and then you don't have any issues. You have issues when your quarterback and your head coach want to direct a quarterback's strengths and they don't address them. So I would think it's just kind of a lot of moving parts on that.
It is. It's a hard question.
There's a lot of moving parts because it's like you don't want to give up on a franchise quarterback because when you look at the Super Bowl wins, majority of Super Bowl wins are from quarterbacks that are franchise guys.
Right.
So, and I mean, to me, you knew my answer, but like I said, like with me, Aaron Rodgers is a little bit of a difference because he's becoming a little bit of a smug.
Right, but think back. Now think back. And Kate, this is what I will send to you. Think back. Aaron Rodgers, he was going through a slump. He was not playing well, right? And we knew that they could do better. He had been with Mike McCarthy for a long, long time at that point. He knew there just was something that wasn't clicking, okay? And so Mike McCarthy had the way he wanted to play football. Aaron Rodgers had a different way he wanted to play football. So it's not that the coach wasn't great or the quarterback's not great. They just aren't connecting. The team decided to hold on to Aaron Rodgers. Now, was that a good decision? He gets him back to the NFC Championship. So if that's your goal is to get that far, then yes, he's done just fine. But when does it become, and maybe is it more situational, like the age of the quarterback versus, I don't know. It's so hard. Kate, what do you think about this?
So I think age absolutely matters. If he's over 30, I don't know how many more years he's got left in him. But in my mind, it's both. And I don't mean that as a cop-out. I mean it from the sense of ownership knows what kind of team they want to have. So does the head coach and his style follow with what the owner and the GM and them want to do? Or does the quarterback have the skill set that they want? Because that's what we saw in Green Bay. We had very different ideas of what they wanted to do for football. And I firmly believe they kept Aaron Rodgers not just because he was a really good franchise quarterback, but because his style of play went along with what ownership wanted. So there are teams out there, if you look at the Browns right now, there are an awful lot of people complaining about Baker Mayfield and his play on the field and complaining about Kevin Stefanski and his coaching. And I'm telling you right now, if one of them has to go, it will be Baker Mayfield because ownership loves Stefanski, the relationship he has with the GM, the way they're adding players to this team, the way they're building the roster. all of that is clicking, they will find a quarterback to click for him. But this is also a team that hasn't had 5, 6, 7 years of a franchise quarterback the way you see in Green Bay, the way you see in Dallas. How many coaches have they been through the last few years? And Dak is still there. So I think a lot of that is going to be directed from the front office and from the general manager, largely because for the vast majority of teams, that's who's making the personnel decisions. That's who's picking who to draft and who they're signing in free agency or doing trades. So whoever's running that team wants either a quarterback or a head coach that's completely on board with what they want to do.
Mm-hmm. Here's the situation that kind of baffles me a little bit. When you look at, and I brought this up specifically for the Seattle situation, but there are, like we just mentioned, many other teams that have gone through this. You look at it, you don't have a strong owner, and that's no disrespect to Jody Allen, but Paul Allen was the owner. He died. She took over their ownership by committee right now. The person making all your personnel decisions is your GM and your head coach, who is the head of that. And so there's a weird power shift there. You also have to add in then the PR aspect of you have the face of the franchise, one of the faces of football, versus a Hall of Fame head coach. Well, he'll be a Hall of Fame quarterback too, but Hall of Fame, head coach, but at 70 years old. So age can play the factor on both ends at that point then too. Mm-hmm. And it starts to get really weird. It starts to get a weird push-pull. Sonia, here's the question I have for you, because to be honest with you, you're the longest suffering fan of this group, right? The Lions have been struggling for years and years and years. You had Matt Stafford, who seems to be playing pretty well for the Rams, right? Mm-hmm. But you still did not have that success. So to you, I would assume then that coaching becomes so important at that point. Or was the only reason you guys did as well as you did because of Matt Stafford? I don't know where the Lions sit in that conversation.
That's a really good question. And yeah, I was thinking that is it the coach? It probably is the coach, but maybe that there was some kind of disconnect between Matthew and all the coaches that we've had. I mean, because I think it just makes a good case for both, because if you think about the Lions, you think about we had that franchise quarterback and coaching and possibly the talent around him, excluding Megatron, a couple other people, really wasn't what, he's got in the Rams right now, right? Mm-hmm. So this is where coaching comes into it, right? Because you have your franchise quarterback and we were still not able to do anything. Mm-hmm. But then, you take somebody like Bill Belichick. He had his quarterback for a long time, got rid of his quarterback, has a new quarterback, and, is bringing him up. And the Patriots are doing pretty good. So, I mean, there's cases for both. I think what hasn't happened in the Lions, and, everybody can say it's going to go back to managementship, is that we just haven't had people on the same page, unfortunately.
Right.
And sometimes I don't know where the disconnect is or what's going on, but people have not been on the same page and unable to put out a good product. And so who does that fall back on? I guess in the end, ownership, right? But you can't force owners to sell.
Right. If we could, right? The Washington football team would have a different owner. So anyway, sorry, a little side note there. Yeah, I find it fascinating. You brought up a good point. Bill Belichick, okay, had Tom Brady win 1,000 Super Bowls, dynasty, best football team for 20 years, whatever. And then Tom Brady leaves. Okay, weird. We get it. They weren't getting along. There was a push-pull, whatever there may be. Off he goes to Tampa Bay, wins another Super Bowl. Bill Belichick has one bad year. And now look at him right now. The Patriots look good, you guys. And they got their quarterback. They got what they wanted. And so there's no answer there. They're both winners, right? And when they were together, they were winners, and separate, they are winners. I think what this comes down to the crux of it, and then Kate, yes, I will definitely get back to you. I think what comes down to the crux of this for me is, what is your preference? what type of, like you said, on the same page. Lisa loves 1,000 points. She wants the quarterback. She wants to do this. The coach can just sit there, let the quarterback do his job, right?
Yes, right.
And then you realize that there are 52 other men on that team that need to be coached. And so is the one more important than the many? That's a belief. I mean, I think it just comes down to your fandom. What were you going to say, Kate?
I think the Belichick situation is unique in that when you look at Mike McCarthy and some of the other coaches that, have been let go instead, he's got a track record of Super Bowls. And in 5 years, Bill Belichick will still be coaching the Patriots and Tom Brady will no longer be in the NFL. So if you're ownership and you're looking at risk, reward, long-term goals, we'll let Tom go and good luck to him for the next 2 or 3 years. But Belichick is still young enough that he'll still be coaching in 5 and 10 years.
He'll be 80.
He'll be 80.
He's not that old. Belichick?
He's 69.
He's 69 years old.
Yeah, he'll be 70 this year.
And you think he won't still be coaching in 10 years?
Well, that's a really good point.
No, I don't.
But I don't know that Brady won't be playing in 10 damn years.
No, I give Brady
that 5
one
damn
more.
years ago, Kate. We said that damn 5 years ago. He won't be playing in 5 years.
But here's
I had
you're
done about
absolutely
Brett
right.
Favre. I couldn't believe Brett Favre left and went to left the Vikings and left Green Bay and went to Minnesota of all teams, in the division.
Didn't he go to the Jets first, though?
I thought it was after.
No, I think
he went to the Jets first,
then Minnesota.
Then he finished with the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing too with Mike McCarthy, and I'm not harping on Green Bay. I'm just saying that this is the example I give when this argument pops up on Twitter. Look at Mike McCarthy. Sat out a year, went to to Dallas. Dallas is a Super Bowl contender, people. And so sometimes the marriage just doesn't work. And so you just have to kind of figure out what's going on with them and either make it work. But one thing that every single one of us said was the word owner. And in my opinion, and I'll get roasted for it, and I don't even care, the Seahawks' biggest issue is the fact that they do not have a strong owner since Paul Allen died. You need an owner that wants to win. God help me. Yeah, everybody needs a Jerry Jones, just with less of a mouth, right? That wants to win and is willing to do that. And so I think that's the biggest issue in Seattle. I also think it's the biggest issue in Detroit.
But I have a question on Seattle. I mean, what do you think Paul would have changed? You think Paul would have got rid of Russell? You think Paul would have got rid of Pete?
No. What
would change?
I think he would have walked into that damn room and said, "What the hell is going on here? We need to fix this now." And Jody Allen is a wonderful woman, and they're doing this whole ownership by committee thing, and no one is holding anyone's feet to the fire. And I think that is an owner's job. They are not there just to make money. They are there to hold their feet to the fire. And I'm really, really, really hoping that somehow that happens. That I think that is the biggest difference. And to be honest with you, when you have as much power as Pete Carroll has and John Snyder has within the team, they need to peel some of that back a little bit and have someone else take a look at it. That's an owner's job. And Seattle just doesn't have that owner right now. So
it's almost like parenting. Like Lisa, it's like with two of your grandkids are fighting. Somebody needs to come in and say, listen, you're both right, but we're going to do this my way. And here's how I want it handled, and stay on it and give them a direction and tell them to go work together and get there. And I think, Dana, you're absolutely right. I see the same thing, Sonia, with your Lions they don't have a strong leadership coming from the owner to put the coach and the quarterback on the same page and get them going.
Yeah. Tell them to, for lack of a better term, tell them to get their shit together, because really that's what this is all about. So, all right, let's move on. Let's go ahead and talk about the other issue in the NFC West right now, but it is not just the NFC West. Lisa can talk all about this too. We're talking draft picks, people. We're going to be talking about what's more important, because this has been a fight since forever with the Rams fans. God love them. I love Rams fans. I think they're so fun. And other teams too, though. I don't want to just say it's just the Rams, but we're going to use them as an example. What is more important as we continue our armchair GM conversation? Draft picks or 1-year rental blue chip players? Now I'm talking blue chip players. I'm not talking about players.
We're talking Von Millers. We're talking OBJs.
Right.
We're talking people that you think will come in and make an impact.
Exactly. They're going to come in and change your team the minute they step on the field. That's what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
There is a huge group of football fans, I'm talking huge, that think draft picks are from God. They have this golden halo, the more picks, the better, which I get the thought, but oh my God, we got rid of a draft pick, and they have a freaking heart attack because somebody got rid of a draft pick. Jesus. And then there are players who are like, get rid of every draft pick. We don't draft well anyway. Bring in the player, right? So this is interesting. This is what has happened with the Rams. And everyone keeps saying, oh, it's going to catch up to them. It's going to catch up to them. Well, I'm still waiting for it to catch up to them, people. But here we go. After the Von Miller trade, the Rams now have a 5th-round pick next year and 2 7ths. That's it. 3. Seattle this last year had 3 draft picks. The Texans, didn't they dump half their picks to Miami? So Miami has 7,000 picks at this point. The Eagles, I think they have what?
The Eagles have our pick. The Eagles have the Dolphins' first pick.
I think they have 4 first-round picks this year. It's insane. And so there's a whole group of people who think, oh, my God, the Eagles are going to change their whole team. And then there's people who are like, you know what? Win now, fix the rest later. Same with the cap, same with all that. Just push it down the line, push it down the line, push it down the line. I want to know where you guys stand. Sonia, I'd like to start with you since the other two have got to start already. So, Sonia, I'm going to start with you. Are you a draft pick person or are you a win now person? maybe your opinion is a little skewed a little to one way.
Let's get the draft picks. I mean, that bottom line, that's what the Lions have right now. Is yeah, but yeah, that's what we need. We need draft picks. We just need. I mean, if Dan Campbell is here to stay, which it sounds like it is, which fine, first year pass, but he's gonna need players to buy into his system and to figure out what he wants, and so he's gonna need picks. So right now, I am team draft picks. Because I think that's going to help build the team with what he wants. He gets to mold it in his image, hopefully with, Brad Holmes, the GM and stuff like that. So I'm team draft picks. I think that's going to help make the team better. I'm hoping. And, you get Jared Goff or whatever. He's obviously not going to be there for the long
next year.
And, and we really thought that we were going to get something a little bit better out of him, I should say. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of another reason why it's a little disappointing. But yeah, no, I'm team draft picks all the way.
You said something though at the beginning of that was really good. You said that because Dan Campbell's a brand new coach, he has to build his team. So I think that's a really good idea. You're a really good point. Because Sean McVay, he's not going anywhere, right? Yeah. And so he has already, kind of started to mold this team to what he wants it to be. So maybe that's why he's not so into it. Lisa, are you as high on draft picks as I think you are, that you think that that's how you build a team? Or when you have your major pieces and you just need one more thing, do you just dump all your draft picks for a couple of years and go after the piece?
Well, the first thing when we started talking about it, I thought about the Washington Redskins, the Washington football team. When they were, that team, they stockpiled that. Remember, they brought in free agents everywhere, and it was a disaster. And so then you had everybody, like you said, build through the draft. You build through the draft. I think you look at the draft classes coming up, no draft pick is guaranteed. I'm going to say that right now. There are only few and far people that you look in that draft. Now, I'm talking like you could pick out the Peyton Mannings. You could pick out the Chase Young because Chase Young was solid. You knew he was going to be solid. This draft class coming up, I'm a little sketchy. I'm like those people that have all those draft picks. I'm like, okay, I'm putting it in. And then you look at the Rams, like you said, they brought in Von Miller. They brought in Odell. And it was hard because I was shocked. I told Kate that too. I was shocked that either one of them were playing so quick. I mean, they just threw them in there, which I thought was kind of unfair. I still think they're going to need a couple games to get going. I just, everybody's like, oh, he was a dud. Come on. He's been there, 2 days? I was surprised Cam Newton got put in the game. So I'm okay with like the draft class that's coming up and you're looking at your football team. And if there's somebody out there that can make a difference, I'd be all about pitching a draft pick to bring in somebody that's going to make an immediate impact on my team. So I kind of look at it that way.
But Lisa, what we're looking at, and maybe Kate, I'll shoot this to you. Maybe what we are seeing now as a trend in the NFL is it's not just one draft pick to get someone on your team. You're having to give away, if it's a blue chip player, it's a first next year and a second and third the next year. And I mean, these are multiple picks, just to get these players in the door. And so it's hard to look that far down into the draft, don't you think? Kate, where do you sit with this?
So there's three things I look at. The first thing is, you've already mentioned, how close am I? Do I need one piece, two pieces? I think the Rams are done. They've got two pieces that fill big holes for them, and they're taking their shot, and they're ride or die, throwing it all at the playoffs. I think if a team has a franchise quarterback, they're not at all concerned about draft picks, because frankly, you can get really good players at almost every other position in the second, third, fourth, fifth round, or you can pick them up somewhere. Right. I think quarterback is harder to find other than grabbing one in the draft. But I think the third thing is where you are at with the salary cap. If you don't have a lot of salary cap room, then you are trading whatever you can and picking up draft picks, because you can now sign these people on a rookie pay scale and get yourself back financially into a better position to do your rebuilding going that way. A lot of these teams, like the Dolphins, that have a ton of draft picks, are also on the lower end of the salary cap. So are at the upper end of the salary cap. So by bringing in the rookies, they can get back down to a more comfortable level for the owner.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I think salary cap does have a huge, huge amount to do with it. Although I will tell you, I've decided that the salary cap doesn't truly exist. All we need to do is look at the Kansas City Chiefs to figure that out. It does not exist. The Kansas City Chiefs. They have a money tree. They walk out, they take out the money, they hand it to the people. That's what they do. But it's interesting here, and there are diehard one way or the other. They really are. There are people out there who really, really believe one way or the other when it comes to draft picks over, these 1 year kind of blue chip rentals, because Von Miller, can they afford to pay him next year? I don't think so. So they got him for half a season. They lost those draft picks for a half of a season of a guy. Would I have liked Von Miller on my team? Yeah, but I wouldn't have paid what they paid for half a season. That's just not how I would do it. But I think that we're all.
Would you pay for it, Dana? Would you pay for it if you almost thought that you'd go to the Super Bowl? Would it be worth it then? If somebody looked at you and said, look, if you bring Von Miller on this team, you're almost guaranteed to go to the Super Bowl. Would you do it?
No, because I have a whole different philosophy on the playoffs. And I got into it. The Hawk Blogger guys just murdered me for it. But I think once you hit the second round of the playoffs, not the first one, but the second round, it's so much more luck than anything else. There's so much luck that comes into that, between injury luck and, referee luck, which we have seen some disastrous refereeing the last couple of weeks, and, things like that. So I don't know. I would think, can you not overcome that one position, with other members of your team? If you've built your team right, you can. And that's what all of this comes down to.
Well, and if you look at OBJ, if you look at OBJ and what went on with him, he had 2 more years left on his contract. As part of the negotiations and the deal that he made with the Browns, they released him from those last 2 years so that when they put him on waivers, they were hoping another team would pick him up for the 1 year rental, because they weren't committed to having to pay him for years 2 and 3.
Right.
No one picked him up. So the Browns are on the hook for $7 million. It's not costing the Rams that much to rent OBJ for the rest of this year.
No, he's a different situation.
Waivers and they picked him up. So that one was pretty much a freebie. The Von Miller one's going to cost them, but that one didn't cost them nothing.
OBJ, because they just basically, there was no draft picks involved with him. And so it was definitely a different situation. I don't know. I think that a lot of this comes down to how deep is your rebuild? How deep is your rebuild?
Rebuilds aren't fun. I don't understand how fans cry for them so much. People cry for them but they'll cry for them. It'll happen. But then those first 2 years, because it takes 2 to 3 years. Fans don't realize that these days. At least. And especially me, I know that I'm suffering that right now, because now I went from potential coach of the year to they want everybody fired again.
I know. Well, fans are like that. They always want everybody fired.
Holy cow.
Traded and fired. Just trade them and fire them. That's what they say. All right, you guys. Well, that is our show for this week. Thanks for letting us be armchair GMs this week. We'll be armchair quarterbacks next week. Lisa will love that. That'll be so fun.
My favorite shows.
I know. But we're going to do some evaluation of the quarterbacks in the league since we're well past halfway. Although that's still weird with 17 games. But anyway, so thanks for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. We'll be back next Tuesday right here on YouTube, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We will see you then. Good night, everybody.